Welcome to PSOJ Business Bites. My name is Rochelle Mitchell and I'll be your host for the series. Now, I did promise you that every week we're going to be talking to your favorite business moguls. And of course, because I always tell the truth, I'm keeping true to my word. So this week with us is none other than CEO of the PSOJ, Mrs. Makeba Bennett-Easy. Makeba.
Hi, Rochelle.
How are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm so happy to have you.
I can see that.
Okay, so let's jump right in.
Yes.
Who is Makeba Bennett-Easy?
Makeba is a lot of things. She's driven. She's persistent. She is dynamic. She is determined, innovative. There's so many adjectives I could use. But if I was to sum up Makeba in one word, she's driven, purpose-driven.
Purpose-driven.
Yes.
Okay. What is the PSOJ?
The PSOJ is, we're an umbrella organization. So we are really focused on representing and advocating on behalf of all our members, large and small. Just to put it really simply and contextualize it, we are focused on working with all the right stakeholders to help Jamaica achieve its Vision 2030.
Okay, so chart for us the path that led to you now becoming the youngest CEO of the PSOJ, because
That's a long path. How much time you have?
I'm cheering. Woman, youngest woman.
How much time you have?
I have all day really because I work here, but
So, all right, I'll take it right back to the beginning.
Right.
So my career started with Jean Laurie Chin. It's a very popular name at Procom. So that was my first real job. I worked with Mrs. Chin. I started out as her receptionist. And that was while I was going through school. But I'd say that my career building really started at Digicel. I started working at Digicel in the very early days, in 2001, where I joined them as a call center agent, believe it or not. Yes, I joined as a call center agent. And I didn't stay there very long though, because Digicel is one of those companies that they believe in taking a chance on young people.
Right.
So my director at the time, she saw in me these tendencies, according to her, to lead and teach.
yes.
So she moved me over to the training and quality assurance unit. And at that time, Digicel was rolling out right throughout the Caribbean. So I was responsible for training and teaching in all different territories. And that experience was phenomenal because I worked in Aruba, I worked in Trinidad, I worked in St. Lucia, lived and worked, right? So you get immersed in the culture. So that's where I think I developed my love for the whole cultural transformation side of life, right? Now, the exciting thing about being on the, what do you call it now, the rollout team,
Yes.
was that you go there to do one thing. But because you're coming from the most mature market, you find that you get pulled into all different aspects of the business. So I was able to hone skills in all areas, sales, marketing, you name it. So after having gone through that experience, I realized that whichever territory I was in, I was always getting drawn into the people stuff, the recruitment, the coaching, the conflict resolution. And I decided when I got back to Jamaica that maybe I need to shift my career a little bit and focus more on the HR side. Everybody thought I was crazy, right? Because at this point now, you're leaving your training and quality assurance manager level job with a whole team of direct reports. And the only vacancy that they had in HR at the time was a level below where I was. So everybody thought I was crazy. You're opting to demote yourself. What are you doing? But I decided that sometimes you have to take some steps back in order to take a few steps forward.
Yes.
And I took the role in HR and met who is to this day probably, I guess, my best mentor. His name is Bernett Cook. He was the HR director at the time. And he took a chance on me because, of course, I had no HR experience, right? But again, Digicel is known for that. And I joined, and in less than about 5 months, I was the HR manager for 1,100 people at age 26.
Wow.
So 26. I was 26 when I was the HR manager for Digicel Jamaica. And the next step after that was you move on, you move up to, acting HR director, that kind of thing. And then I met my husband at Digicel.
Ooh.
And I decided at that point in my life that I wanted something different to talk to my husband about. And I had, through my career growth and the focus on career, I had put aside the academics. So my academics were playing catch up because I was getting all this experience and so on. So I said, let me leave and go now and focus on doing my master's. And I got a phone call at the time from a lady called Michelle English at Flow, who heard that I was leaving Digicel and heard about a campaign that I had run called the I Am Digicel campaign.
Yes.
And she decided, no, I need this lady at Flow. At the time, Columbus Communications had just come to Jamaica, and they were going through the whole process of acquiring all the smaller cable companies. And she said she needed somebody with my expertise. So I told her, no, I'm not looking for a job right now. I don't want a full-time job. I just, I'll come and help you. I'll consult with you. But I really want to focus on my studies. So I went in as the business optimization consultant. That's the kind of title you don't ever want, right? Because everybody sees you as, oh, this lady's coming to chop and take our jobs.
Yes.
But it was a fantastic experience. In the first, I'd say 3 or 4 months, I did all my findings, gave her the document, and I said, okay, this is what you need to do in order to fix and get to where you want. She then looked at me and said, okay, so will you take the job? I said, what job? Right? She says she needs a vice president for organizational development and all the things that I had described. So in other words, I kind of wrote my own job description without realizing that I was writing a job description for myself. And the rest is history. I spent 6 years there. And in that role, again, I was privileged to have the opportunity to touch all the different aspects of the business and learn about all different parts of the business. And after that, I took a step back and I said, what one aspect of my leadership acumen do I not feel so confident about? And it was the financial side. So I saw an opportunity to immerse myself into a bank, because what better financial experience can you ask for if you're not immersed, other than being immersed in a bank?
Yes.
And that's when I started working at First Global Bank, Grace Kennedy. And I spent 2 years there. And that led me here. So, in terms of the path, that's a very long-winded answer for you, but those were my steps. That's how my career went.
Very exciting path,
Yes.
though, I must say. Very exciting. And I feel like every door opened for you at the right time, and there was just the right chance or the right opportunity. So, as a child, though, little Makeba, what did little Makeba want to be? Because everybody, as a little girl, I didn't have this dream. I'm going to be very honest with you.
Listen.
Every little girl wants to get married and have the kids. And
I was never that little girl.
Me neither.
I was never that little girl. I did not sit in the back of the class and draw the picture of the wedding dress and the picket fence. I was never that little girl. But I always laugh when people ask me this question, what did you want to be as a child? As a child, we don't know. It's fluid, right? Yes. It changes with what you watch on TV, the latest book that you're reading. One day I want to be a lawyer. The next day I want to be a ballet dancer. The next day I want to, you name it, right? But I believe that it was somewhere in high school that I started I kind of came to the realization that even though I still didn't know what I wanted to do, I just knew I wanted to be great. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that looked like. But that realization now caused me to start doing everything to the best of my ability. So I wouldn't do anything halfway, no matter what it was. I learned in high school that I did not have a love for the sciences. So the doctor thing was not going to be me,
No.
right? So I kept the bio because I needed to have it, but I dropped the chemistry and the physics as fast as I possibly could because I don't think that side of my brain works so well, right? That's not for me.
No.
The business was where I found myself leaning towards. And maybe in the first 3-4 years of my career proper is where I decided that whatever I did, it has to have a component of leadership and the people agenda.
Okay, so I want to share a little story with our viewers. I don't know if Makeba will go and pick me up after, but I have to tell you. So she tells a little story of when all the other little girls were drawing, and they're drawing the dogs and the wedding dresses and the picket fence.
Yep.
She drew a building. So I believe it was her mother says, Max, what's that? And what's that little thing up there at the top floor? She said, that's me looking out of my office window.
That's my corner office, the high-rise corner office. I just had these visions that one day I was going to be in a corner office at somewhere like, like a Google or an InStyle or one of these large Fortune 500 companies. I always saw that for myself. I didn't know the how, I didn't know the what. I didn't know what I'd be doing in this corner office. But I just knew that that was me and that was what I was going for.
And he got you corner office. So tell me about the plan that you have in your present capacity. What kind of legacy are you going to be leaving at the PSOJ?
The legacy I want to leave at the PSOJ is twofold. I want to be known as that CEO that is, or was responsible for making a huge national impact in areas of human capital development and social reform. And the second part of the legacy I want to create is that I want to create a team of stars, right? I believe that I measure my own success based on how my team is doing, how my team is performing. Because if I inherit a team and I leave them the same way I found them, so they haven't grown, they haven't developed in any way, I believe I have failed. So yeah, I guess to summarize my legacy in just two parts, it's human capital development, social reform from my external standpoint, and internally, I am going to have an enviable team. I mean, the type of team that people just want to poach all the time. So I'm going to spend a lot of time doing that.
Okay, do you believe that your experience as an HR professional is what takes the lead?
Yeah.
When you think of how you visualize and how you actualize your role as CEO here at the PSOJ?
I do. I think it has had a tremendous impact, right? Because I think that my expertise in handling things like culture and ethics and conflict resolution, some of the more difficult things that CEOs have to deal with, I think that that's very helpful. I do believe, however, that every CEO has got to be rounded. And your business acumen has to be strong. I don't say that you need to know everything. Nobody knows everything, and it's always a constant learning. But when you find the things that you're really good at, I believe you need to focus on your strengths, and don't be afraid to ask for help with the areas that you're not so strong in. But the more things you read, you see it every day, because the typical CEO pathing is usually your finance person or your salesperson that tends to graduate into the CEO position. But a former CEO of mine once told me that I am good at HR because I'm operationally minded. So he always describes me as an operations person who does HR. And I think that has kind of carried through, because I've never felt that I can do HR well without understanding the business in a holistic kind of way. So yes, short answer, yes, I believe it is a great asset.
Okay, so something else that I want to share with you. Makeba doesn't do failure, and she's known as the queen of closing deals in heels.
I knew you were going to say that.
You'll see the heels, okay? Always in these fantastic heels. So talk to me about your style. Talk to me about how you got this name as the queen of closing deals in heels.
So I'm from very humble beginnings, right? And I was raised by a mother and a grandmother who believes that if you have one t-shirt and one pair of jeans, it must always be clean. It must always be pressed.
True.
So from really young, I understood that your appearance is key, right? Whether we like it or not, people judge us first based on how we look, before we even open our mouth. Now, I'm never going to say that I'm short, because I don't believe I'm short of anything.
Challenged.
But as a vertically challenged female,
yes.
I developed a love for stilettos very early, and I love fashion. That's me. I love fashion,
evident.
right? So my grandmother said to me I think I was about 13 or 14, always keep your heels, head, and standards high, and I have lived by that. And so I guess that would explain the heels.
Yes.
So my love for stilettos and this need to keep my heels, head, and standards high. And the closing deals part, I've always been known as a bit of a misfix-it. I remember when I worked at Flow, they used to call me the Olivia Pope of the organization, because I somehow always found a solution for complex issues. And I don't always have the answer, but I know how to find the answer. And I know how to find the people who may have the answer. And I just believe you have to get it done. And a job is not done until it is done. So I guess you put those two together, it explains the closing deals in heels.
Okay, so for those of our viewers that don't know, you're also a successful entrepreneur. So tell us about some of the strategies that you use to employ success in your business.
The main one, Rochelle, is agility. The world of work is constantly changing. You always have to be innovating and repackaging your offerings, right? So in my line of work, which is HR consulting, you just have to remain agile. It's a competitive space. And one of the unique challenges that I would face and have faced is age, right? Because people will just look at you quickly and size you up and say, oh, but she's so young. I want somebody to come in and help me transform my organization and my culture. And the thinking is they need to go to a large company with international experience, like a Deloitte or one of those larger, what can this young girl possibly tell me? So I learned very early to get creative, right? I had to repackage my offerings. So I'm not going to reduce my price or lessen my worth. But what I had to do is kind of repackage so that I do it more bite-sized. So I would instead offer them, all right, you're not so sure because I do not have 35 years of experience, but I'm telling you, based on what I can bring to the table, this is what I can do for you. And then I offer, let me work with one of your teams instead of the entire organization, because I know that working with that team, when they see the demonstrated track record of success, automatically it would work. And that strategy has certainly worked for me.
Okay. What is the biggest challenge that you've had in your career, and how did you handle that? Because I know you're Miss Fix-It and you don't fail. So how do you deal with that?
Oh my goodness, there's been a lot. I don't know that I have a biggest one though. I think it would go right back down to the age thing I just mentioned. And always having to find ways of proving very quickly and earning credibility very fast that, she may not be 65, but she has been through some hard knocks and she's able to add value. So it would go back down to age. And another one, and that happened to me later in my career because I was privileged enough to work for a company or companies in the early days who they rewarded you more on the merit of what you brought to the table as opposed to the letters behind your name. And as I progressed in corporate Jamaica, I recognized that the letters behind your name became really important.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not discounting education because education is what I'm passionate about. But I also have always believed more in hiring the attitude and training the skill. So a great learning for me was that it's necessary that you have these letters behind your name. But I was always challenged by, should we not give people, an equal opportunity based on their merit?
You should.
So yeah, I think it would be the age and the need to have that MSc, which I'm now pleased to report I finally have.
Congratulations.
So yeah, those would be the two.
What is Makeba's mantra?
Oh, good God. Lord, there are so many of them. There are so many of them. One that governs how I operate generally is people will forget what you said. They will forget what you did, but they're not going to forget how you made them feel, right? Another one I live by is something that one of my mentors from a distance believes in. If your dreams don't scare you, they're entirely too small. I've always had big dreams. I mean, even when people are laughing at me and say, "You're serious? You think you can do that?" Yeah, I've always had big dreams. Because I've learned that success or anything at all that's good does not come from your comfort zone. If I'm getting too comfortable, if I'm starting to feel comfortable, it's time to do the next best thing, next big thing. And I also believe that if I find myself in a situation where I am the brightest person in the room or in the space, it's time to change that space. I always want to be somewhere that I am learning from, I'm able to share as well. But if you're the brightest person in the room, chances are you've outgrown that room.
Yes.
So, I mean, those are some of them. And clearly, I believe that you must keep your heels head and your standards high.
Okay, so I want to get on a personal level for a minute. I want to ask you, what does a typical day look like? Because I want you to know that she shows up this fabulous to the office every single day. Like every day. Fabulous in heels.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
So a typical day, I believe in positive reinforcement and starting my day with affirmations and reminders of who we are, what we're about. So I'm a typical YouTuber that way. So I will wake up in the mornings and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to jump on YouTube and listen to some of my I am affirmations. I'm an avid reader, and spending the last 2 years juggling work and an MSc, I haven't been able to read a lot. So on the weekends now and sometimes in the early morning, I spend maybe 20 minutes, half an hour going through a few chapters of whatever good book I'm on at the moment. And I most mornings I try. Some mornings I don't make it because I'm not a morning person, but I do try to do my yoga and just kind of center myself, because I believe that if you're properly centered, you can take on anything, and anything the day throws at you, you can get it done. My staff will tell you, you will be able now to attest to it. I'm very deliberate about how I handle my time. Yes. I'm very deliberate with how I handle my time. I work long hours. That's something, the balance I'm working on. But I typically am just very organized, and I plan everything as much as possible. A bit of a paradox, because as much of a planner, I tend to also have a very spontaneous side. And, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, just in terms of my morning routine and then take it through, that's my typical day. And then, my boss, I have a very exciting boss yes. named Howard Mitchell. And Howard, when Howard passes through the office, you could have your week planned X way. Just make sure that you're agile, right? Because Howard is coming with something that you didn't quite plan for, and you have to respond quickly to that. But it's been a pleasure working with him.
So you mentioned balance.
Yeah.
And you mentioned yoga.
Yes.
So how do you maintain and balance everything? I know you're organized, but what happens to downtime, taking care of Makeba time?
Absolutely. You have to do that.
How does that work in?
So if I'm being honest, I'm still struggling with the balance thing, right? I do not believe that balance, in the true sense of the word, is possible, right? However, I think we can come very close to it. So I'm a guilty workaholic. My husband will tell you that I have a problem disconnecting or, just turning off, as he puts it. But I have learned over the years that there just comes a point where you have to. And I relax. My relax typically entails a good book, my beanbag, a glass of red wine, some really good friends. I enjoy a trip to the North Coast. And I love to travel. I absolutely love to travel. I always want to be doing something different. And I find I truly relax when I am outside of my environment. Once I'm in my home environment, there's too much. It's too much stimulus. There's always something to do, something to fix, something to. So typically, I work out 3 to 4 times a week, and that helps me to keep my sanity. Otherwise, Friday evenings are sacred. I try to make sure that nothing comes in the way of my Friday evening, which is usually sometimes Netflix and a glass of wine, a good book and a glass of wine, or a girlfriend, or her house, my house, something. And then Sundays are sacred from the husband's standpoint. So our family knows if it is not something that's going to happen in the morning when I do my boot camp, something major has to happen for you to call me on a Sunday. That's my time. Yes. That is where, that's Makeba time. And I try to hold those rules very dear, because you tend to have less control in the middle of the week when life happens.
How do you define success for yourself?
That one is tricky, because there are many different measures that I use to determine success in different spheres of my life. So the one I mentioned earlier is big to me. If I can see that I have a team of persons who they're changing positively under my leadership, that is one. And I'm also a very target-driven person. So I believe in metrics. I believe in measurement. I believe that what gets measured gets done. So you'll find that I try to organize my life and how I do things around some very specific pillars. And once I am able to say that I have achieved against what I've set out, for me, that is success. And I believe that failure is normal. I believe that sometimes, it's best to make a decision and make a bad one and then recover from it, then make no decision at all. So, yeah, I guess that's how I view
one
success.
last question for you.
All right.
So, you've been the HR professional, you're the youngest CEO of the PSOJ.
Yes.
What is your ultimate goal, and what steps will you be taking to get there?
My ultimate goal is to be the CEO of Makeba, right? So now, yes, I'm the CEO of PSOJ, but I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. And that is why I have started running my own business, even, simultaneously to continuing to work and hone those skills and learn more. I I want to be that go-to person that organizations right throughout the world in any culture can call on when they're having problems or issues that require a cultural transformation or a people fix. So ultimately, I want to be that guru. I want to be known as that guru of the people agenda. And that would be through my consulting. I love start dates and end dates. I get very bored when things start to work too right and it's too consistent. I see my role as going in, fixing things, setting them on the right path, and then moving on.
Okay.
So the guru of HR and org development consulting is what I want to do.
Makeba Incorporated.
Yes.
All right. No more questions from me, but what would you say to a young entrepreneur that's watching?
It's okay to not know everything, and it's okay to slow down sometimes. I found, like, if I was talking to a younger version of myself, I would have to say that is one lesson that I wish I knew earlier. That perfection is, I don't know that it's real.
It's aloof.
It's, yeah. And find time, make time for other things that are important. Your family, your friends, your children. And don't be afraid to take a risk. My life is about risks. I mean, you pick up, you brush off, you fall down 9 times, you get up 10. And that would be the advice I'd give to young people. Keep pushing.
Thank you for joining me. Listen, I don't want to tell you what I had to do to get this interview today.
Yes.
I'm so grateful that we actually got it. We were speaking with Makeba Bennett-Easy, CEO of the PSOJ. She's a transformational leader, organizational development strategist, senior executive of human resources. This has been PSOJ Business Bites. My name is Rochelle Mitchell. Join us again next Thursday at 12:30 p.m. for a chance to hear from your favorite moguls. You never know who we're going to be speaking to. And if you miss us, you can catch us on Business Bites on Monday on the Loop Jamaica app and in the business section of the Loop Jamaica website. That's www.loopjamaica.com. So see you next week.